Every wrestling fan has their holy grail match.
You have chosen wisely.
For some, it's a what if. Perhaps Bret Hart versus Bryan Danielson, or maybe even Macho Man Randy Savage versus The Rock. For others, it's a clash that's been lost to history, like Owen Hart's dark match with a raw Kurt Angle. In recent months, matches of that ilk have been gradually uncovered, with WWE Vault picking up the mantle from network discoveries such as the Hitman's famed Miracle match against Tom McGee.
The holy grail of wrestling tape trading is the match between Bret Hart and Mega Man Tom McGee from 1986.
For me, those discoveries have only made my own pursuit more painful. After all, my holy grail match is one that it increasingly seems like only I remember. Or almost only I remember.
We had a match that no one even knows about with FTR in Tokyo in Ryogoku Sumo Hall.
Yeah, you know, I don't remember the match as well as you remember the match, Chad,
because concussed.
Our friend who told you the Super 7 story may or may not have knocked me the fuck out.
And trust me, FTR called a lot for that match. It was a good match, but we had to remember a whole lot.
Yeah. Guess who didn't? This guy.
Yeah. No, we had a match with FTR in Tokyo that was with
Badass.
fucking unbelievable. Crowd was going fucking nuts.
We need them in Tokyo again.
A lot of big matches here at Ryogoku Sumo Hall back in the day. It's good to be back here in Tokyo. Our second
match with Gallows and Anderson was probably the best match we had on the main roster.
Outside of a few obvious exceptions, 2019 isn't exactly a sparkling year for WWE. The summer was particularly rough, with the wildcard rule accompanying a bizarre 2 out of 3 falls onslaught. Unfortunately, neither of the Tokyo Tapes teams were immune from those creative woes, with both having a range of rumours surrounding their names.
The rumors are true. The rumors are true. Dash and myself, the Revival, we plan on leave.
Indeed, neither the Revival or the club would be in WWE by June 2020. But they did have this match. For those unaware, this meeting earned rave reviews on social media, even inspiring this tweet from then WWE Champion Seth Rollins. That's ironic, considering that in 2018, these same teams produced a match that Vince McMahon famously deemed the worst he'd ever seen. They actually wrestled quite a bit prior to this, but the matches were never armed with any significance. Sumo Hall allowed a one-night escape from those limitations though, with Gallows and Gunn returning to a building that had been so kind to them in the past, even hosting Anderson's famed 2012 G1 final. Unlike much of the surrounding card, this match would never fully make it to YouTube, with a mere clip being the only surviving footage. Look, let's be honest, I don't have the power to change that. If I did, it would have worked around 200 tweets ago. I can do the next best thing though. Piecing the night together with insight from the only 4 people that not only might remember the match's buzz, but better yet, maybe even the thriller itself. Step by step, my plan is to go far beyond merely watching the elusive Tokyo tape. Instead, me and my many Hawaiian shirts will relive it, taking you fine Grinners along with us.
I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
In fear of starting on a sour note, I wanted to kind of just set the stage by asking about the vibe in summer 2019, because as fans, that is not like a sort of fondly remembered era for WWE, as I'm sure you're aware. What was the kind of vibe internally, when you head off for this trip in the summer of 2019 for WWE?
I think our vibe, as far as ours, me and Cash, our vibe was different than a lot of other guys.
I actually do remember it really fondly, because it was a time in the business when I was wanted. Like we were wanted badly.
At that time, I felt like we were ready to go again because like 2018 sucked. That was when they had moved us to SmackDown, and you know, I call it punishment mode. I don't know if they really had nothing to do for us, which seemed weird at that time, or if we were kind of being punished because we did go to SmackDown and then like we didn't do shit in 2018. So I think like by the middle of 19, we kind of we were excited again.
We were wanted by AEW, constantly on phone calls with the AEW, which was about to start in, you know, October of 2019.
The AEW rumblings were hot, so that option was there in the back of our heads as well. So I think it was an optimistic time in our heads.
That whole year, but especially around that time, was an infamous stretch for us too, because I would have to go back and look at either Cage Match or something that has like all the dates. But David and myself, man, we were doing so many international tours at that point, and we were doing like both halves of them, or we were on ones that some people like were off because they had done a previous tour or they were on the next. But and I don't say this as like a burial type thing, but I think it was kind of punishment for us because we weren't playing hardball, but we just had to signed. And so we were on every international tour, and it was, you know, it's daunting when you're doing Australia, then back to the States for a day or two to do a TV, and then you're off to Japan, which is a multiple show stop, and then you're off to the next country. It was a lot.
We had already asked for our release in January of that year, so we knew we weren't re-signing. And you know, we were just biding our time, but we were also planning on. We had talked about it, and I said I want to go out in every house show, which we had never taken a night off. I don't think we've ever taken a night off in our lives as far as in the ring, but I wanted to have the best house show matches because I knew it was going to be few and far between on TV. I wanted to have the best house show matches we could possibly have, so when we left, they could say, "Man, we let that go," you know.
Like, I still love it, and I still think at that point mentally it was probably the sharpest I've ever been in the ring, like, because the conditioning is top notch because you're wrestling so much. But yeah, like that was. I'd have to go back and see what all kind of stories were going on at that point, but I know 2019 was an infamous year all around for everybody.
Yeah, I recommend you don't actually go back and look at the stories, Gallows. It's best just leave it. The memories are probably better than the reality.
And so around that time, we were having those crazy matches, the 45-minute matches with Gable and Bobby Roode that were incredible. And you know, the Good Brothers, we wanted to have a great match in Japan with those guys too. The vibe was definitely different then because creative wasn't at an all-time high for anybody there. Right. Houses were down. And that's the funny thing, especially whenever AEW was running these bigger arenas and we weren't selling out. You know, the hard cam side, you know, the famous thing, the hard cam side's empty. But in 2019, that's how every TV was. The hard cam side was complete. And then, you know, a lot of people forget that, but the whole hard cam side was empty. I remember house shows. We were sometimes doing 700 fans at house shows. So it was a difficult time because pay was down. Like I said, Cash and I hadn't re-signed any of the new contracts. Everyone else had, but we didn't because we knew we weren't going to stay. And so we were still getting paid on the house, you know, what the house was. So our paychecks were completely, you know, diminished. Although we had worked more matches. And if you check in 2019, I think I was number 1. I think Baron Corbin might have been number 2, and Cash was number 3 as far as most matches for the year of 2019. And I was the lowest paid guy out of anybody on the roster.
And, you know, you never know because you hear so many. I mean, how often do you hear that there's a new startup of something else? This was another thing that was starting up. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't believe it. I was certain this one was going to start up, but we were having a lot of conversations with was it even named AEW yet at that point? I don't remember.
So the vibe was definitely not the greatest, you know, back then.
I remember Scott D'Amore from TNA even called, and we obliged his call, and we asked him, how much can you give us, just to see what he'd say. And the number he spouted out, me and Gallows looked at each other. We were on speaker and looked at each other and go, what? I'm thinking, where does he get that from? Like, because that was a lot of money. You know what? Fuck, I'm thinking of Joe. We need to start over. I'm sorry. I was thinking totally something different. Yeah, I hated the place in 2018. Fuck.
Machine Gun got halfway through his answer, then thought that I asked about 2018, did a full 180, and then had to realize he was right the first time.
Yes.
I'm just making things up.
You're on the right, you're vaguely there though, because
so I was thinking a whole. So where 2018 was fucking terrible. I couldn't wait to get out of there.
You're right. We're in 2019. You're on the right track. We're perfect. Summer 2019. This is June 2019. So this is like a month after Double or Nothing, the first AEW show, and this is the weekend where you have the famed meeting with Triple H. You're on the money.
So I was on the right. Okay, so. Yeah. Oh fuck. Okay, so then I might, because the very next night Triple H teamed with us. So the whole reason that we were even in Tokyo that whole weekend was Triple H was there. Triple H booked himself on this show, on this weekend show. There was 2 shows back to back in Ryogoku, and Hunter had teamed himself with the Good Brothers and AJ Styles in the main event, and Hunter offered us this insane deal. So our brains were spinning on what we should do. The day of these matches versus Broski and Kurt Hawkins, and then the FTR brothers, we literally were sitting in Triple H's office for an hour, which talking about what we needed, what the deal we were going to get, this contract we were going to sign, to the point where I told the FTR guys, yo, you guys got to call these matches. And they're the only guys in the world some of the only guys that I trust to just call and just let me know and tell me in the ring and talk to me in the ring. And they're the greatest about it.
Is this around the time when you began to employ the Bill Watts tough business on families to keep the morale up? Is this around that time?
I would say that for a few years, because obviously it's a serious thing that those guys went through in that era of WCW in the early 90s, but it's just such a ridiculous, funny answer that I would say it all the time. And the boys who appreciate it would pop, and those who didn't like being on the road, well, they wouldn't. But that's just part of it. So.
The year before that was pure misery. We couldn't wait to get out of the WWE. It was time to leave the WWE. It was our calling to leave the WWE. But right around this time, in this summer of 2019, everything started to heat up a little bit, and we started to feel wanted by everyone. And then it was like, shit, maybe we're going to stay in the WWE.
I have a pretty good feel about your answer about this next question. Excitement about returning to Japan, right? Obviously a place that means a lot to you. Sumo Hall in particular is obviously an iconic venue. When you see that on the calendar, even as part of WWE, is that a different feeling of excitement?
Yeah, we used to love doing the live events. That's where we would have a lot of fun. We could be ourselves more. Everything wasn't so calculated as it is on television. And then to see Japan pop up, to see Tokyo pop up, to see Sumo Hall, an iconic venue where we'd had huge matches pop up, we were pumped out of our gourds.
I remember going there in 2008 and seeing, Shinsuke and Makabe and the Great Muta and Tanahashi and Goto main event in these G1s. And I was on the side, on my knee watching the G1s 2008, 2009, or in the back watching those G1 finals, thinking someday I want to be in the middle of that ring. And then I ended up being in the middle of that ring.
But yeah, it does bring a little extra excitement, a little extra juice to it when you're in there. And you get to see all these different places. And I'd been to Japan before at that point, but I'd never really gotten to go back on that stage. So to go back and get to do that was awesome. We actually had an NXT loop there that did one show, maybe two, but I know at least one.
Well, I think any kind of overseas trip was always fun and different. And I've always enjoyed visiting different cultures. And now I like to do the same thing for my daughter. I like for her to, like, we just took our vacation, our spring vacation that we always take. And I told my wife I really wanted to go to Mexico and take our daughter there because I want her to see as many cultures as she possibly can and see as many different lifestyles, whether that's, all the way across in California or that's all the way across the world in Japan. So, I don't think being in Japan made me want to work any harder than what we were already working. But I knew it was very special for Chad and Gallows, for Karl and Gallows, because that's where they kind of made their name. And I knew they had a lot of notoriety there. And so I wanted to make it special for them. And of course for us too, but I don't think it was any different for me and Cash than it was for Seattle, Washington or whatever,
It's like it's always such an honor to go because the wrestling fans over there are so good. They're so respectful, and they're just, I don't know. Japan's just always been one of those places for me. Like I hold it in a very high regard, especially when it comes to getting to perform there. It's just, that's one of the peaks of the career.
Joe, I think I've said this on my podcast. I've said it out loud. I always say this. My father's not a wrestling mark. He's just a guy that grew up watching. He doesn't know inside terms. And he said, Chad, what's the difference with New Japan Pro Wrestling and WWE? Is it like apples and oranges? I said, no, Dad, it's like apples and cocks. That's how I don't know how else it's not the same fruit. It's not the same. It's not nowhere near anything.
And then when we found out what the match was going to be, that it would be our buddies, Hawkins and Ryder, and then turn into FTR. Like, some nights you go, oh, double duty, geez. But this was one we were definitely looking forward to. Let's go out there and have two bangers. And people wanted to see us work FTR in Sumo Hall. I think at that time it was a big match. So we were definitely pumped up for it.
Well, even the year before, so 2018, it wasn't going great for us. I think it was, for example, it was the lowest amount of money we'd made in the first 4 years in WWE, just because we only made our downside, if that makes sense. We weren't on extra stuff. And the only thing I looked forward to was the 2 Tokyo shows that we weren't booked for. And because we weren't booked for it, that's when the actual boys, like the New Day and the Usos, back when it was a little more brother and a little more friendly, and everyone was kind of friends, almost because you saw each other so much, you didn't really have a choice. They almost went to bat for us, like, yo, the Good Brothers got to be on these shows. And I almost felt unwanted. Like I was like, well, I'd rather not go now. They didn't book us for it. But then we ended up getting booked for it because Michael Hayes was the one that booked it. And he's hit or miss, likes you or hates you. It just depends on his day or who you are or where you're looked at on the hierarchy.
The NXT one would have been when I think they paired it with Australia. I think you guys did.
Yeah, they did. I was sick as a dog at that point too. I remember like I was really, really sick on the way to Japan, and then was really sick during the match, and like afterwards had to get like some sort of injection, like and then they put antibiotics and stuff like that. And by the time we got to Australia, we had a day off, and that day off, I swear, brought me back to life. Like having that day to rest and just recuperate after all the time travel and time changes and this was, again, that would have been what, 2016?
Late 2016, yeah.
Yeah, so like that was probably some of the most fun we'd ever had. And that Australian tour ended up being a blast, but the start of it was rough. And I was so excited to go to Japan because that was the biggest stage I'd ever been on there. And I was just so sick that I couldn't really enjoy it.
Every time I see Tokyo on the card, like our last year here in WWE, 2023 or 24, when they finally went back to Tokyo.
Yeah.
We were not on it. And I took my Twitter and my Instagram and I hid it on my iPhone so that I didn't have to see everybody fucking putting it over. Because it is a very special place to me that I like to go work at.
you guys had worked together quite a bit. Nothing substantial with any kind of creative effort behind it, but you and the Good Brothers, FTR and the Good Brothers, worked together quite a bit. And famously, your Royal Rumble pre-show match was deemed the worst that Vince McMahon had ever seen. Memories of your matches to this point, maybe even that particular one, but just how did you feel about your chemistry with Gallows and Anderson?
I loved working with Gallows and Anderson.
How did you feel about your matches at that point? Because I think it was last year I watched like all of your TV stuff, and it seemed like you had a nice dynamic. There was just no creative to support the matches you were having, right? How did you feel about the chemistry of the Good Brothers?
You know, I loved it. I mean, you know, I think it was the Royal Rumble. I think it was the Royal Rumble. That's when he said we had at that time we had a few different matches with him, and we kind of had a running joke that we were booked 50-50, you know, that neither of us were getting an upper hand, and you know, it was a running joke.
They were always too quick. We never had an opportunity to do anything. It was always like we were on the 25th anniversary of Raw, where, you know, we got to stand in the middle of the ring with DX and Scott Hall and fucking Shawn Michaels, and everybody's out there, and me and Finn Balor and Gallows, you know, we all throw it up in the click in the middle of the ring, and almost thought it was going to be this passing of the torch type thing. And we thought, here we go. We're going off to the next level, is next Raw. It's ours, right? In the very next Raw, I'm certain that we lost to FTR on main event. I would imagine.
It was wildly fun and disappointing with FTR, because at the time we're thinking we're two great tag team acts, you know, and they cared so little about tag team wrestling and that Raw tag team division that it would be like, we're thinking we could do this, this, and this. We could build up to this pay-per-view. We could do this. We could trade the titles. And it would literally be like, all right, you guys, Good Brothers are going to win this week in 8 minutes. And then next week we come back and it's Revival's going to win in 7. Then the next week the Good Brothers get disqualified. Then Revival rolls up one. Like, there was just, it was complete tag team filler.
Like, especially considering none of us had a whole lot of story behind us. We didn't have a whole lot of steam going. And so we're just going out there pretty cold every night, having matches. And there's only so much you can do with a fan base that's that massive, and not everybody's diehard fans, and not everybody is going to be invested in the people that aren't on TV regularly. So like you're already fighting an uphill battle.
I was very confident in my abilities. I knew how good we were, and that, you know, that probably sounds egotistical, but that was the thing. I don't know about now. Obviously, I've been gone for 5 years, but then that's what they tried to do. They tried to break people down mentally and tried to make them think that they were less than, and that there was no other place for them to go, whether it was wrestling or any part of life. They wanted you to think. I remember with Bill DeMott. This is one of the reasons I have my feelings towards him, is a lot of people this is a sidebar, but a lot of people think the misconception is Bill DeMott made us work hard, and that's why people disliked him. That was not the case at all. It's because he was a bad person. But you know, I remember him saying to us, "What are you going to do if you leave here? Go work at Walmart." And that was what they always from the time we were in NXT and FCW all the way to the main roster. That's what they instilled in you, that without them you were nothing.
But any chance we got, you know, in there with FTR, it was always, I mean, the guys can go. I mean, they're good, and I trusted them, which was the thing that, like I said earlier, I don't always have a ton of trust with people. Like I'd rather kind of be in control of like calling the match, because you can say whatever you want, but like I'm gonna call a match. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be fine, and everyone's gonna get through safely, and I can call a fucking match.
But going out there with Good Brothers, we always had fun. I feel like we always, by the end of it, had the fans up there. And I still think the Royal Rumble match was really fun. I don't think it was the worst that he'd ever seen, but I do think in that moment he was very serious when he said it.
The worst match he'd ever seen in his entire life. And that covers a lot of ground.
And so I didn't care what Vince said to me. You know, I remember after a match with the New Day, we loved the match. I thought it was a great match. And I've told this story before, but he sent the New Day away after, you know, we talked about the match or whatever. And he looked at me and Cash and he said, "You know what your problem is? or he said all the producers and everybody tells me you guys are the next Arn and Tully. Well, you know what the problem is? That's exactly what you are. The next Arn and Tully. You're just great wrestlers. And then I'm like, dude, you don't you don't get it. That's a compliment to me. But he didn't enjoy our presentation, and that's all I took it as. I knew it. I knew that our work was top tier, and because we had guys like Roman and Seth coming up to us every house show night because we were busting. There were a lot of guys who had been slotted in these matches for years, the same matches over and over for years, and they were doing the same spots, the same half-ass spots. They were doing the same thing, but not me and Dan. We wanted to do something different every night. We also wanted to work harder than anybody else. And Roman and Seth were the guys who should have been able to work, should have been able to phone it in, but they never did on house shows. And so they would always stay back and watch our matches and then come to us afterwards and tell us how appreciative they were that guys like us who weren't getting the TV time that other guys were still busting our ass.
But like with FTR, I trust them to call a safe, great match. They know what to call, and they know what I like to do or don't want to do, and they know where to plug me in the right areas. They're damn good.
And we were pretty proud of our tag team work at the time, all four of us, and we thought we could really make something magical happen, and they just didn't care at all. And I feel like that worst match of all time was probably Vince looking at his phone, not paying attention during the pre-show. He looked up, saw one thing he didn't like, and went, "God damn it!" And then when we came back thinking, "Fuck, that was great." Worst match I've ever seen in my whole life.
So that was the thing, is like you said, the pre was it the Rumble that we did that?
Pre-show at the Rumble.
So
yeah.
This was the joke that we had about this. We got to the back. Vince takes off his headset, throws his headset down, and said, "That's the worst match I've ever seen." And like all of us we let him tear into us a little bit. And if I remember right, Dax goes, "Well, Vince, thank you. We're just glad you said something to us, because half the time you wouldn't, he'd just, good job and go." Because I just figured I was the best wrestler in the world because everyone just shook my hand and didn't say anything. But the thing with that was, it definitely wasn't the worst match in the world. It wasn't the worst match he's ever seen. Trust me, I watched the show, right? During that match, the joke was, I remember doing the match, 1, 2, 3. I was moonwalking back up the fucking ramp, and I said, "Here comes the machine gun push. Goodbye, Gallows. Yeah, I'm out of here. I'm going to the rockets strapped to me." And then he said, "That's the worst match he's ever seen." And it was like, "Well, what do you mean, right?" And he said, "Well, you didn't give anybody a chance to do anything, or you didn't get a chance to sell. You just go and move. And it's like, I don't know, Vince. We had 6 minutes, and you want guys to get over in 6 minutes, and you haven't had much TV time. It's just, again, apples and cocks, Joe."
Yeah, indeed. We have to retitle this thing "Apples and Cocks: The Tokyo Tape." I think Carl's quote was, "I know it wasn't the worst. I watched the show," which was apt.
Well, I'll say I've seen some of the guys that he liked and he pushed, and so I know for a fact it wasn't the worst he'd ever seen. And again, like, I think if you go back and watch it, technically it's very sound. It's just it wasn't his cup of tea, and I didn't even take great offense to it, because I don't like what he likes. Like, he likes his certain style. Like, that's what he was always into. And that's cool. Like, it's your company. You were the boss. You hated it. But at that same time, I was so checked out of what he cared about, what he thought. Like, we knew we wanted to leave and we didn't want to be there. Even by that point, we'd already asked for our release for the first time, actually. So it was just like, okay, you didn't like it. Like, this doesn't affect me in any other way, shape, or form. Like, I'm just going to kind of sit here and smile and nod my head. And when we go to the back, we're all going to have a good laugh about it.
And that historically WWE, Vince didn't love tag teams. He thinks the only tag team that anyone ever paid to see was the Legion of Doom, and that's it. He's said that before. So,
yeah.
It
is wild. Like, I mean, I'll move on to the second, but it's just, you bring, like, there's no angles or anything, is there? There's just, like, match.
Just a match and a match and a match. It's like they took, like, one of the syndicated WCW Saturday morning shows in that time slot, and just that's the same thing was being done with the tag division on Monday Night Raw.
But chemistry with the Good Brothers was great. They're great. They're really, really, really good wrestlers. I mean, regardless what is perceived on television, you know, what they've been given, they're incredible wrestlers, you know, have a great mind for the business too. Physically, athletically, they're really, really, really good, better than what they've ever been able to show.
I want to thank you for helping me organize this meeting here today.
So you mentioned to me that you guys couldn't speak to them beforehand because they were in the midst of a private meeting.
Right.
So best you can, like, detail to me what you knew was going on, and at the time what you knew was going on, and then what you found out afterwards, which I think has become public knowledge somewhat. So go for it.
Yeah. So I knew earlier in the day what was going to happen. I could be wrong, but that, again, this is 6 years ago, but I could be wrong. But I think earlier in the day, I was doing cardio at the hotel, and Chad came in, and he walked up to me, and I was watching wrestling or something. I was watching a wrestling match while I was doing cardio, and I was like, dude, I can't wait for tonight, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, you know, me too, but I'm going to have to put it all in you guys' hands to put it together because Hunter wants to sit down and talk to us tonight about our contracts. And I said, okay, you know, no problem.
You know, like we weren't we were not on TV during the time before this, and we were thinking we were gone. Like we were going to AEW. Like, you know, we're going to be with our friends, the Young Bucks. Tony Khan was ready for us. Like we were leaving. It was it. We had nothing on TV. And then all of a sudden, like AJ gets wind of it, and we weren't secretly going around AJ. It just was like, you know, AJ's staying. Our contract was up. We weren't being treated, in our opinions, the way we thought we should have been. So it was like, all right, we're out. And all of a sudden, AJ says, listen, I'm about to turn heel. I want you guys to stay. And I'm like, what? You know, this can't be real, right? And then all of a sudden, Hunter wants to talk to us a lot, you know, every day. And then we see that we're booked in Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Triple H is teaming with us in an 8-man in Tokyo. And we're like, what is going on?
At the time, it was such a positive feeling, but looking back on it, it was Triple H being a business genius, because that night we still hadn't signed back yet, and that was his way of, you know, it obviously was. It was shining us up, you know what I mean? And he told us that he would probably never wrestle on this continent again, and it meant so much to him to get to do it with us because we meant so much to those people. I mean, he was saying just beautiful things. He brought us in his dressing room before, and we talked about the money and what would make us happy. I believe that's where he told us that he wanted to watch our children grow up because he knew them from Instagram.
I think there's a quote, and I'm sure he might tell you, because they were going to sign with AEW, I believe, initially. And Hunter said, you have to think about your family. He said, you don't know if that place is even going to be around in a year. We're going to be around forever, and we're going to take care of you and your family forever. And he used that card to get those guys to sign.
Yeah, I remember that one very vividly, which is funny because I don't remember night one at all. Like, it's like that day never happened, but the day with Gallows and Anderson, like working match 1 and match 2 and us being the second match, like I remember that one really well. And we were, so backstory a little bit, Gallows and Anderson had already been like renegotiating. They had already pretty much made up their mind that they wanted to jump. They were done. They wanted to come like to AEW. And so they weren't really negotiating anymore. They weren't really like counter offering. And so we're in Japan, and it's the morning of that show, and we're at the hotel gym, and Dax and I get there, and the Good Brothers are like finishing up a workout, like they're on cardio, whatever. And they're like, hey boys, do you mind like just having as much planned for the stuff tonight as possible, because Hunter wants to meet with us and he wants to talk contracts, and we don't know how long that's going to take, how that's going to go.
And up until that point, I don't think they were going to sign. They had decided no, and they had told them no a few times. And the same thing with us. We initially they gave us the same contract they were going to give everybody else. It was like $450,000 a year. And we said no. And they kept upping the money. Well, they did that with these guys too, until they got to Japan and had to talk with Hunter face to face.
But yeah, we had that conversation with Hunter directly before that tag match in Tokyo in Sumo Hall. Is so weird the way it all worked out. Like in a arena, probably my favorite arena to wrestle in, because it gets the kind of reactions. Like even watching that clip that you sent me. You can hear those reactions, the way it, something about it when it starts to rumble, man.
When you're talking about a guy like Hunter, this is someone that we've all, regardless how you feel about him, whether you're a fan or you've worked with him, we've all grown up with him. We've all grown up and watched him and almost idolized him, right? Because he's been in a prime position for, or at that point for a decade. He'd been in a prime, more than a decade, 15 years. He'd been in a main event spot and, had some of the greatest matches ever. So, whatever feelings we might have had personally, he's still Triple H to us. And it's, it's almost an awe being in front of him because this is a guy that you grew up, watching. And so I think Hunter knew that if he got them face to face, he could talk them into whatever he wanted.
That was, 10 a.m., 11 in the morning. It's pretty early over there. We still have the show to get to. We get to the building and almost immediately, like by the time we get there, we don't get a chance. We tell them like, this is what we're thinking. They're like, okay, like that, give us a little bit to process that, but we got to go have the meeting. And they were gone for a while.
They walked in there thinking they weren't going to resign. And when they came out of the meeting, I think it was Anderson that said, boys, they got us. And they had decided to sign.
And they came back probably 30 minutes before they're supposed to go out with Hawkins and Ryder. And I'm going to go ahead and say this too, because I think it's hysterical. And if they don't want it in, I'll ask them and let you know. But they came, like, they just walked up to us and they looked so defeated, like, because they didn't want to re-sign. And we're like, how'd it go? And they're like, he got us.
There was something. Yeah. We looked at each other. Hunter offered us something, and I went, geez, here we go. And he goes, well, let me get back to you guys as soon as this show is over. And, we knew it. Like, we knew it. Like, we're probably going to get what we wanted. And I'm sure I said something like that. Yep, he got us.
I think Karl agreed to the deal without conferring with me right in front of my face and shook his hand before, once the offer was on the table, if I remember correctly, right in the back of Sumo Hall. And then, here we go. We're all good. We're WWE guys for life.
Right.
I remember after the show was over, we were all sitting in the locker room and Triple H comes in and it's Triple H. I mean, Triple H, he's the boss of this place. Yeah. And he's waiting on, who is he waiting on to talk to? Like, us. Like he's waiting on, and like the FTR was right there and witnessed all of this. It's, it's not anything I made up. It's just, as soon as we were done talking, Triple H wants to see you guys. Great. We said it, and we agreed right there in Tokyo on what we had to, and it was the kind of contract that I'm just not sure how you deny is where I was, is kind of where I was at, in my opinion. Obviously I wish I would have, but
this is my memory. And again, it could be wrong because obviously we know what happens a little bit later. My memory of it was I was a little bit unhappy with Karl, even though we're best buddies and business partners, because he kind of he got excited when he heard the number and didn't think about a counter offer, didn't think about any terms, didn't think about anything. He just stuck his hand out and shook it. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess that counts for both of us. So what the fuck? So that's my memory of that.
And we're like, how'd it go? And they're like, he got us. We agreed. Like, we thought that we could like say a number that was too high, and they would say no, not interested, thanks. And they didn't bat an eye. They said yeah, and we got this, and we got X amount, and we told them, okay, yeah, we'll do it. And like they just did not like look happy to be fresh off agreeing to the highest amount of money they'd ever agreed to. It's just so funny, like that memory. Like they come up and you would think that somebody just told them they had lost a family member, but instead it's they got us. We re-signed. And so, you know, that was the same. I guess Hunter teamed with Shinsuke that night, right? Maybe a 6-man.
It was him and Shinsuke against Joe and Rude. I think it was like the three of the NXT champs against.
Okay,
that was what it was.
Yeah. So like they just came back and we're about to go out for the match, and they just looked like they had the worst day of their lives, and somebody just told them, you know, they're terminal or whatever. But it was just such a weird situation that's, you know, how it was at that point.
It's so of that time that like he's doing all this, and meanwhile you guys aren't on TV. Like the disconnect is just ridiculous, right?
It's weird. It's something that could be studied. It could be studied.
Yeah,
like even I don't know what it is. I just, of course, I wish I would have just been like, "Yo, Hunter, we're good, man. Like, you know, you take care. I appreciate it." We could have gone to AEW. We would have stayed there. We'd still be there, and we would just be having fun. I don't know, but you know, it's like the same with this return this last time. Like, you know, Hunter FaceTimed us. You know, we FaceTimed 3 or 4 times. We had all this awesome creative stuff, and we're doing these awesome creative meetings, and it's like this. All right, fuck, this is great. And then it just goes south so quickly. And it's like, it can't always be our fault. Like, I mean, I know that sometimes things just don't work out, but there's weird shit that goes on there.
And I'm sure I was definitely happy and appreciative because it was a bigger number than I'd ever heard before. But I was kind of like, there are 2 of us, you know, like we could have went over in a little corner and talked about that. and like him and I have never had an argument. But I think later on I was like, boy, you just stuck that hand right out there, huh? And he's like, oh yeah, it's great. And I go, oh, okay. I mean, well, here we are.
I love the idea of you having a 10-second window where you're like, hang on, singles? Can I work a G1? What's happening here? Let's have a think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Dude. Hold the fucking phone here for a second.
Yeah. Yes, well, that was the last weekend Triple H was like a full-time, well, not full-time, an active wrestler. That's his last weekend.
No, it was cool, man. We did this. We did the gimmick in the middle of the ring where we brought it back, and like, you know, Hunter, and like I believe it was genuine. Like he shook my hand, and like we looked each other in the eye, and he was like, you know, I appreciate this. This is my last time performing in Japan. I you know, thank you for being in here with me. And it's like that's cool shit that you can take forever. Yeah. You know, and so is what it is with whatever happens business wise, but the match was awesome. Hunter was awesome in that match. The crowd fucking was going nuts. And I mean, that's a memory that I've always got etched in my head forever.
You know, and because of the way you negotiated out the deals, like the others have the 90-day thing, right? Where it's like July or June. Yeah.
We had a no non-compete. We could have been the next day if we wanted. Like ours was free and clear. There wasn't even a 30-day. Like it was just outright release.
Was it because you gave licenses up? What was the story behind that? Yeah,
we gave a bunch of our trademarks over. So again, around 2019, like around December 2019 is when we had the talk. We were on a long drive on like after a live event, and we just had the talk. And we're like, I think after the holiday loop, we ask if we can leave. Like we can just ask to not be resigned, to not just be cut clear and free. And so we did the holiday loop, and like right around New Year's, like December 29th or 30th, somewhere around there, I copyrighted FTR myself because we knew that we wanted to utilize FTR outside of WWE. We'd already started putting it on our trunks, but nobody had said anything to us. So I did like a very rudimentary like trademark myself. And then we got a hold of Dawkins, like gimmick attorney Mike Dawkins, because through the Good Brothers, honestly, actually, they were the ones that said this is who we've used for our stuff. And we're like, hey, Mike, can you help us like lock this down? And can you see what else is available? Because we came up with all our stuff. Like it wasn't something like the brain trust sat down and said, let's come up with a bunch of ideas for the revival. Like the name was our idea. No Flips, Just Fists was David's idea. Top Guys was our idea. Like all that stuff that Shatter Machine was our idea. So like everything that we trademarked was stuff that we had come up with. And we had Dawkins look at and realized that they hadn't trademarked any of it. So whatever was available, we snatched up, and that's public. That's public information. They can, like, it gets leaked. Like, people see that, and so it started getting out, and the office found out, and at this point it'd been a year. Like, that happened over the course of a year. That was like December, early January 2019, 2020 or 2018, I guess, right?
So
No,
I guess
2019. Yeah, sorry. So it would have been December 2018 or January 2019. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
So by January 2019, we'd already trademarked FTR, and throughout the rest of that year, we trademarked other stuff. So come early 2020, they got wind of it, and we had asked for a release a couple of times since then, and that was over a 15-month period. So by the end of that, Carano called us and he said, "Hey, we have a proposition." And there was sign over these trademarks, and we'll let you guys have your release with no non-compete clause. And we said, okay, we'll sign over most of them, but we're going to keep at least FTR. Like, that's ours. Everything else, FTR KO, which we knew they wouldn't want us to have, but we knew that would be a good piece of leverage. Yeah. So, like, we signed that over and a couple other things. But yeah, that's how we was able to get ours before everybody else, and we didn't have the 90-day non-compete. So we, again, like, that was April 10th or something like that for us. Mm-hmm. So we could have been, like, on the next Dynamite, we could have been there, but we just took time figuring out the next moves, negotiating, talking about, like, what we want to do, and just taking a couple of weeks to recharge and breathe. I want to say it's our last TV appearance was the last meeting we had with Vince, and that was, like, something we'd been asking for a little bit, because they kept asking us to re-sign, and we said we're not going to re-sign anything. We're not going to talk contracts until we can have a sit down with Vince and just explain, like, how we feel about certain things and why we've asked for our release. If we get that, then we'll talk more about re-signing or, like, negotiating numbers. And so it was a SmackDown, and it's the one where I think it was me, Dave, Sammy, and Corbin, something like that. Such a weird group, but we left Braun Strowman laying, and, like, so we're ringside earlier that day, and we get a random text say, "Hey, Vince wants to meet now," and we've been asking for weeks at this point, probably months at this point. And we're like, "Oh, okay," and we just, we left ringside, we went back there, we had the meeting, and we told Vince how we were feeling about certain things, why we didn't want to re-sign. And he was very cool, like, very understanding about it. Like, he said, like, I wish I had, like, something to tell you guys about, like, why you're wrong. He's like, but you have very valid reasons to be upset. And he's like, what if we paid you this much and, raise the number one more time? And we're like, it's really not about the number. And they said, well, just take a week and think about it and then let us know. And so we're okay. And we left that meeting. That's the same meeting, I believe, where we, like, not the same meeting, but they gave us the actual pictures of the Cat in the Hat stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so we walked out, where we take about 10 steps from the office, and we just look at each other and say, like, I don't want to stay still. Like, he's like, yeah, same. So we just, like, we saw Carano and we're like, Mark, we don't need a week. Like, we're good. But they still let us go out there and leave Braun laying. And then, like, they were planning on having us, I think, have a handicap match against him in Saudi and lose, obviously. But we had already told them we weren't going back to Saudi after the whole plane fiasco. So we saw the date pop up in our app, and I immediately texted Carano, said, "Hey, Carano, you guys made a mistake and booked us for Saudi." And he's like, blah, 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 like this. And we said, yeah, remember we told you we're not going back ever? Like, that's still the case. Not going back. Not doing it. And so he's like, all right, let me talk to him and see what we can figure out. And then they just pulled, like, then our app, all the dates went completely blank. Like, they pulled us off everything. Ended up putting us on one more live event, I think, maybe 2 more dates. And then COVID shut everything down, and we were sitting at home, and then it got released. So...
My God, I feel like I'm taking you through all these memories,
No, like, it's I'm glad I still have the memories. I'm glad they're still there.
It's now time to talk about the feared forearm of one Zack Ryder, because this is now where things take a turn.
Oh, well, there we go. That was the funny thing I wanted to bring up.
Yes. Gallows has told the story about being very, you know, kind of cocksure, you know, it'll be fine working Hawkins and Ryder. I've worked them a million times. What's the worst that can happen? He gets concussed, and then things are, you know, the next match is on. You guys come out to work the match. On the footage we have, which is very limited, he looks totally fine. But as we've learned for years, that doesn't mean anything in wrestling, right? Guys, just autopilot. How quickly did you become aware that Gallows was not, the lights were not fully on that night in Tokyo?
Before the match, before we even walked out, we knew.
And I don't know if it's me seeing a clip back of it, but I remember the forearm, and then I remember, and if you look back, I don't sell at all. I just stand up and like stumble across the ring and tag Karl for his hot tag.
The footage that I sent you, to his credit, Gallows looks completely fine. But so much so that when I spoke to Dax, I was like, did you know? And Dax just goes, I definitely knew. Because he said they were watching on the monitor, and, you know, Gallows didn't know where he was at.
I wanted to see the video you'd sent. I was hoping that I was going to get to see it, right? Because I was like, oh, here we go. Like, I can't believe it didn't have it on there. But
I mean, as good of a guy he is, Zack Ryder has a reputation for he likes to say Arn Anderson told me I have to be stiff because I'm too pretty. Well, Zach, that doesn't mean you have to knock us out every fucking night. You know what I mean?
Like, before we even get to that, why was this a 2-match? Is that, do you do that often on house shows, right? The setup match?
I couldn't have any idea. I remember in our first time back. So when we signed with WWE in February of 16,
yep.
We went to Japan in June or July again of 16, and it was a 4-way tag. It was the New Day, the Usos, us, and the fucking Vaudevillains. And I just remember being on the and I just remember being on the side of the ring, like, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
but there wasn't a lot of, you know, working twice. Like, I remember they used to do this thing in Australia called the Brisbane Cup, and I don't know why, if the sponsor in Brisbane, Australia, paid for this. But, like, we would all work, and then we would have to be in the Brisbane Cup. And the Brisbane Cup was just a shitty battle royal where everybody was dicking around and, like, you know, eye gougomania. And they every year before the Brisbane Cup, like, don't fuck around at the Brisbane Cup. These people come to see the Brisbane Cup. I'm like, the Brisbane Cup's never been televised. And I don't think people know from one year to the next, like, oh, God, the Brisbane Cup's tonight. But there must have been, I don't know if Coca-Cola Australia loved it. Somebody loved it. But there was always a Brisbane Cup in Brisbane, Australia. And at the end, the guy gets a little Brisbane Cup trophy.
Look, I got to be honest. I'm in pretty deep, clearly. Look at this project we're doing. I have never heard of the Brisbane Cup, ever. Not once.
I don't even think the people of Brisbane have heard of it.
That is, I mean, it's not surprising, but it is very funny.
It's yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I do feel the need, in fear of being, like, you know, safety police here, which is not my intention, but I do feel the need. Is there any sort of, like, not for you guys necessarily, you're the wrestlers, but is there anyone involved in the process kind of going, is this, should he wrestle the next match? I feel the need to ask this, Cash. I apologize. I just do.
So that was our thing too, like, because it was pretty obvious to everybody watching on the monitor that he was rocked, like, and probably concussed, and the ref was aware, like, ringside's aware, everybody's aware, but I don't think anybody, like, and it's, you know, we've made a lot of progress in the past 6 years where people are way more cautious when you see somebody get rocked now, but, like, we knew we weren't going to do anything that's going to be head dropping on them and shit like that. We were going to bump and feed and run around and be shit heels. But, like, most cases, like, I would want that match to be stopped. But at that point, we don't know, like, everybody's watching. The boss is there. The boss sees it. Everybody's aware and nobody's calling it. So they're like, just go do your thing. And we're like, okay.
So Broski hit him with a flying forearm, whatever it was in the corner. And because Gallows was taking the heat during this match, because I was going to take the heat with the FTR guys. So it was just going to be a small little heat on Gallows. I mean, I shouldn't even call it heat. They just were going to control him for a little bit. And Broski caught him with just a fucking flying forearm in the corner. Gallows hits whatever he hits to stop Broski. and he's supposed to crawl over to me because we're going to try and get a little bit of steam before I do a big flying machine gun comeback. He hits the move he hits. He walks right over to me just like this because he's out cold. He hits a move. He walks over. He tags me. He turns around like a 1950s boxer in the middle of the ring like he's ready to hit somebody. I tag in. I hit a clothesline. I hit a back elbow. I shoot off reverse. I hit a forearm. I go, Gallows, you got to get the fuck out of the ring. And he goes, yep.
But when it does click with me, I'm standing in the ring like this, and he's blowing a comeback around me. And he goes, what the fuck are you doing? And I say something like fighting. And he goes, get the fuck out of the ring. And I'm kind of like, huh? He's like, I'm blowing my fucking comeback. This is all while he's moving. And then I just kind of saunter out of the ring.
He knocked Gallows out. And I knew the match, like I said, that when I was watching the match, because Gallows, whatever the double down was or whatever, but it was going into the hot tag. Gallows made the hot tag to Karl. Karl got in. Gallows stood up and just turned around and balled his fist up like this because he had no idea what to do.
I asked Dax, and he said that you guys are watching on the monitor, and he described something exactly as Machine Gun described, which is the Dukes Up was the thing they remembered more. They slightly missed
hot tag to the turnaround, and then the rock'em sock'em.
Yes.
Oh yeah, legit. Like he tags Karl. And then he just turns around and looks at the guys and puts his dukes up like a vaudevillain. And Karl's like, move! And it's just the craziest thing. We're all watching it. We're like, oh no.
Whenever, obviously, when you make a hot tag as the baby face, you're supposed to tag and sell and get out, and let your teammate run the comeback. But Gallows made the tag and just turned around with his fist balled up because he didn't know what to do. And so we knew going into it. And he told us too before the match started. He said, "I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what I'm doing." So yeah, we were we knew about it going into it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I apologize for even asking, but it's just because it's Gallows, we all, even I find myself laughing about it, but it's the man's concussed. It is a serious situation, but it's just
and again, Gallows just somehow still comes out looking hilarious, even though his brain's bruised.
And then the next thing I remember, FTR was walking down the aisle, and I was standing in the ring, and I go, "What are they doing here?" And he goes, "We're about to wrestle them." And I go, "We are?" I said, "Either what are they doing here or why are they coming out here?" And he goes, "We're about to wrestle them." And I go, "We are?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I think, they probably saw it and knew it because of who they are and how good they are. And I'm sure they told you, I don't know. But the communication was relayed immediately, like, this fucker's out on his feet. So.
It says he stood, I guess he was floating.
It's insane that he just wrestles the next match. Like, I know that's the way it is, I know, but like, it's kind of wild.
It is. Yeah, it's just the way it is. But he got out, and then he was like, finally, those boys left, and he goes, "I have no idea where we are, none." I said, "Well, we're in Tokyo. We got one more match." He goes, "Oh," I said, "Do you remember it?" He goes, "Nope." I went, "Okay, we'll get you through this, babe."
But, we were in Japan. I'm sure we had a trainer with us. The way Sumo Hall is set up, it's a long entrance. Everything's a long way from the ring. I feel like, if memory serves correct, a WWE monitor there in those days, I don't know what it would look like now because technology has changed. The ring's far away, so you can watch the matches, but it's not like you have a floor cam right up on it. So maybe it wasn't too clear. I'm 100% sure Cardona and Myers knew that Matt had knocked me out because obviously that hot tag sequence. But yeah, it is weird that nobody ran down and called the thing off. And maybe I don't know. I don't want to speak for anybody. I could bury WWE about a lot of shit, but that's not something that I will because I don't know the circumstances.
Right.
So it's interesting.
It's insane. Because I was watching back our early edit of this, and I was like, I'm sitting there laughing at this poor guy being concussed. I feel terrible. But you can see.
I mean, he laughs it off, and like he was always a good sport about it. And even when he got back, like he wasn't completely out of it. He was just loopy.
Right.
So like as the match went on for us anyway, like he started getting his bearings back a little bit, and we slowed it down to where like we can communicate and make sure that we're all on the same page, because even early on, that clip you sent me, you can see where like he forgets to throw a clothesline at one point. I know this is kind of pulling back the curtain, but like he forgets to throw a clothesline at me before he gives me a big bump. And this is like one of the first things we do. And I called it to him as it's happening. And he still just, stands there, and I run right past him. And I'm like, oh, God dang, this is going to be a long match.
So there's like 3 minutes of this that survives. It's bizarre. Of this house show, the YouTuber that uploaded the 3 minutes has uploaded the full match of everything else, which has made this even more like mythical to me.
It's like the Loch Ness Monster of Japan.
Right. There you go. I watched this and was like stunned. To my eye, you looked entirely fine.
Really?
Completely fine. So much so that when I first spoke to Dax, was the first one of these I did, I was like, did you guys know? And he immediately goes, oh, we knew, we were watching the monitor. It was very obvious with it. So then Cash, he spotted there was a spot, I guess, where you were supposed to throw a clothesline, he was going to duck and you didn't throw it, or something to that effect when he rewatched the... But I mean, honestly, it is... Everyone has told, I'm sure this won't surprise you, everyone has told these stories with a smile on their face because they have the same memory of you with the Dukes up. But it is remarkable how wrestlers just autopilot, right? It's incredible.
It's a weird thing, and you hear the story a lot, and then, with the concussion stuff, people don't like to talk about it as much, but anytime one of the boys gets knocked loopy, I would say 8 times out of 10, unless it's a clean knockout, they pretty much can get through enough that the fans don't know. And it's just like that weird wrestler muscle memory, because no clue where I am. So like I must have got through the finish. I don't know how, but I guess that's just in the back of our heads. And you sit before you go out and you want to make sure you don't fuck something up. So you commit it to memory so much. Maybe it's this thing in the back of your mind where you might not know what breakfast was, but you know that. And here's another concussion one, and it's wrestler brain. And this happened, I know when it happened. It happened 13 years before, but we're in developmental. They bring the great Khali over, and they got to teach him they want to teach him to sell so he can work with The Undertaker. I don't remember if you may remember that majestic series of matches with the great Khali and The Undertaker, but there were a few of us, basically the tallest guys there, would mimic the role of The Undertaker. And after practice, we'd have Khali practice. So they would want us to get heat on him. I mean, this is the biggest man in the world. He doesn't know how to sell. You can barely reach his chin to hit him anyway. So we're just trying to think of things to move him around the ring. And I remember I got him in the corner, and I'm beating him up in the corner, and I got up on the second rope. And I was like doing the deal where I'm acting like I'm biting his head. And I told him to push me off. And normally when you get pushed off the rope, the guy pushes your chest or whatever, you kind of take your own bump for safety purposes. But this is a guy who's virtually untrained. I mean, he's done some spots in Japan. He knows what pro wrestling is, but for him to sell and handle somebody like that, so instead of pushing me and let me take my own bump, I remember his hand went under my chin. And I woke up and I was in the dressing room, and I kept saying, is Bill mad at me? Is Bill mad at me? Talking about Bill DeMott. But Bill was sitting beside me, and it was a clean knockout. And I just and obviously I didn't practice for the rest of the day that day. And I had a couple of days off or whatever, but that was my first thought, was like, oh, fuck, I fucked up my career because this dude knocked me out. It's just the way that our brains work, so.
Yeah.
So I don't have much recollection of much in the match.
Okay, so the match itself, because we have so little, there's very few specific questions I can ask you, right? I haven't seen hardly any of it. So I guess for this part, any specific memories, moments, feelings about the match, just describe the match from your memory best you can, and we'll kind of piece it together, with everyone else's input. So the match itself, bell rings, what comes to mind when you think back to that match?
Having a match like that where the guys just worked a full 10-minute or 12-minute match, right before, which was a tag match as well, it is kind of exhausting for the fans, because it was like they won the match, our music hit, and out we walked. So I knew going into it that it was going to be a task for us to get them back.
The fans reacting to the Good Brothers was the first thing that I really remember, because you could hear it starting in the Hawkins and Ryder match, and then when they win, and they know that they're going on to the second match with us, you can feel the crowd coming up even more. And as we start that match, I was like, oh, this is going to be, well, as long as Gallows isn't completely out of it, this is going to be really fun.
So by this time, 2019, we're 3 years deep wrestling them, we're working with them on live events. And so we knew each other really well, and they knew me really well. I knew what they did, to the point where, they can tell me one thing, I would know which corner. Like for example, they would say, sell to the corner, watch the boot, duck dash, I'll hit you with a back elbow. I just know what all they mean. I go to the corner, Dash comes from the corner or down the apron, I duck his line, but there's Dax with a clothesline to hit me. But you could just say it you can just say it in rapid fire ways that I knew that we could do it.
So yeah, we had no real communication up until, they walked out.
That, like, to me, that's unfathomable, but I know for you that's just like business as usual, and to some extent, right? But
I grew up that way. I grew up that way because we were around guys like Ricky Morton and George South and Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey, and these guys, if they saw you talk to your opponents before the match, they would chastise you and call you a mark because they're like, call it out in the ring. So for years, I had to figure out how to do that anyway, and I was very fortunate that happened to me.
But we were in the middle of, real life stuff with, like I said, we were checked out and we were going to AEW. Like that was we already agreed on something. We agreed on a contract. We agreed on a price. We agreed on a year amount. And then, Triple H books this match, or whoever books this match, to where he's coming to team with us. And we're like, hold on a second. We haven't even been on TV. Why is he doing this?
I believed in all of our abilities, and I believed that if we stayed the course, we could get them. So going out there, it was going to be I knew it was going to be hard to get the fans to believe in a match or even care about the match, because they had just exhausted themselves on a tag match. Most tag matches don't see beyond a heat, hot tag, and a go home. And so you had to structure the match completely different. And that was my thinking going into it, because I knew the day before that there was going to be two matches.
And then as the match progresses, and like I said, like one of the very first things is Gallows forgets the clothesline because he's not all there. And it's like, oh man, is this going to go off the rails quick? But as it goes, like I'm sure that other wrestlers have said it, but there's a point in time in the match where you can just feel like everything's clicking, everything's going exactly how it should, and you're just in like a flow state where it's like, oh yeah, this is like, we're just cruising now. Like we're on cruise control because everything's how we want it to be. The crowd's reacting exactly how we want.
I don't remember specifically a whole bunch of things about the match. I remember teasing the Magic Killer up front. I remember there was a great false finish that I had thought of while I was doing cardio, actually. And it was Anderson and Gallows rendering. I think they were going to go for the Magic Killer. Cash comes in and intercepts it somehow, or saves me, gets rid of Gallows. I'm the legal man. We get rid of Gallows. Karl hooks me up for the I don't remember what he calls the cutter.
Gun stun.
Yeah. Hooks me up for that, but I hold him up in the air as he's kicking, and I throw him into Cash, who's there waiting. Cash catches him right into the gun stun. Boom. I go for I can't remember if I went for like a schoolboy or something, like a roll up with tights, and he kicked out, and then he nailed me with it, and it was a big false finish right there, and the fans really bought into that one. Or if it was he hit Cash with it, boom, turns to me, I try something, he counters it, goes right into it, nails it, goes to the cover, 1, 2, and a kick out there. And the fans really, really, really bought into that false finish.
They're reacting to everything we want them to react to, in time. All the stuff on the back end is like so fun, and the crowd's going ape shit for them. It's like, holy crap, dude, we did it. And when we, screw them over and we steal it and win, like the amount of like hate that actually generated from the crowd is like awesome. Like they actually we're heels, we're bad guys. Like here it's more sport, and they just kind of like enjoy the back and forth, but they really wanted the Good Brothers to be the new champions, and they fully invested in it.
All this was going on. And so I literally, when Hunter said, please come to my office, and I knew that we'd only have, 15 minutes maybe to go over it, I just told them, boys, you know what I want to do. You know what I like to do. Please do it. And so, to be able to have the trust in them to call that and to do that, it's just something that only comes with the experience and learning. And that's where sometimes with the new WWE, I wonder if they'll ever have that opportunity. Is it needed? I don't know, but how about when there's times like with Gallows gets knocked out and somebody does have to tell him, and you could say, well, you need to stop the match because he's knocked out, but that's not always easy. You can't always do that. Sometimes you're going to get lost or somebody's going to forget something and you're going to have to say something and get it back on track. And those two boys, those guys can do something like that. And I believe that we can do that just as good as well if we need to. If they would have been in that situation, I would have been able to call something for them.
I remember it took a while to get the fans to, and Japan's a different atmosphere, but it took a while to get the fans to believe in the match. But once they did, they didn't let off the gas. We didn't let off the gas, and they didn't either. So I remember that was being pretty cool. There's footage of the match out there. I used to have it until WWE suspended my account. So, but I used to have the whole match, and it was, it was incredible.
My quiet hope with this project is that the Vault folks do so this was the show where Triple H has that tag match, right? Where it's him and Shin versus Joe and Rip. My hope is they upload the show and we can sneak this in, Because
the crowd immediately was just there. And I'm not going to compare it to the same buzz as the first Briscoes match in Dallas where the crowd is very obviously buzzing. But just knowing that they were the crowd in Japan was that excited already for a match featuring two teams that hadn't had the best track record on TV. I was like, oh, this could be really cool. This is going to be really fun.
I'll tell you what I thought the coolest part about this match was that I remember clearly is the way they were working my leg. They were working my knee, and the people were fucking popping for the way they were working my leg. And that's the kind of stuff that makes me people have whatever they think of me. I love pro wrestling so much. And that's what I love. That kind of shit where if I am fighting back on Dax. I'm fighting back on Dax. He grabs my left leg and they do something and he hits a dragon screw or whatever he hits and they just kept working my leg over and over and over. And the people, you could see the reactions and you could hear the audible reactions of the big pops every time they would shut me down and cut my knee off. And that's the cool shit that I love about pro wrestling.
And it's just that was the thing. Fuck 12,000 people. You're only entertaining
your friends.
Yeah, you're entertaining those 16 guys back there.
Seth Rollins famously tweeted during this match, he tweeted, praise for this, and it kind of gave the match some lore. Was there any internal feedback or talk about how this match went? Was agents talking about it? Did it get back to Vince and co? Any talk at all about how well this match went?
So I would say I forgot about that completely. That Seth had even tweeted during that. I've always had confidence. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I've always had confidence in us, in myself, to where I didn't need all of that because I knew sometimes it wouldn't be true or it would be true, or what gets said here at this house show might get into the production meeting, and then as soon as it gets into the production meeting, Michael Hayes will say, "Well, it sucked anyway," and then move on, and it's just a forgotten entity.
Was there any internal feedback at all? Was there anything in the company that suggested, yeah, that match was good, or was it just we were really happy with that? Let's go back to Raw on Monday and see what they have for us.
Well, always, all of our, I'm only speaking for myself and Cash right now, so you can ask Gallows and Anderson what they think about their stuff. But always, every match we had, every house show match we had, when we had that run, it was I don't know, we had 8 months, maybe a year of working with these teams that they gave us time. I remember there was a time where a lot of guys were injured, and instead of having 9 matches on the house shows, we were having 6 matches because so many people were injured. And I remember around that time they were asking. This is when we were working with Gable and Rude. They were asking us to go 30 minutes, and they would put us before intermission. They would ask us to go 30 minutes. And then eventually they wanted us to go after intermission because the match was so good. And they would ask us to do 35 minutes. And then then they started putting us main event, or maybe right before Roman or Seth. I can't remember. But I do think there were some times we actually main evented the card because we were going 45 minutes, and they were like, we can't put, another match on after a 45-minute match. But every night in that match too, we got, I remember we came back and everybody who was watching, from Seth to I think EC3 might have been there, to Sasha and all these people that were there and all the producers clapping for us and hugging us. To me, it meant nothing because we had already done that. We had done that with Aleister Black and Ricochet, where we had tore the house down with these guys in a house show match and came back and everybody hugged us and clapped for us. We had done it even with Hawkins and Ryder before. And we had done it with obviously Rude and Gable, and all these people came back and told us how great the matches were. And then I would be told from different producers and from Vince McMahon himself how the matches were being received through the reports. So the agents were writing the reports and saying, this match is incredible. This match is incredible. It's got to see TV, which is why we finally got a 3-seg match where we won the belts from Gable and Rude. But, we were told that everyone was campaigning for us and telling them how great the matches were. But, there's only so many times where you get that pat on the back and you're like, fuck yeah, something's going to happen for us now. And then nothing happens. Winning the tag belts means nothing if there's no feature, if you're not featured, right? And that was one of our biggest things to Hunter when we were trying to get our release. Is he said, guys, we're planning to put the belts on you soon. And we said, we don't want the belts because without a tag division that's not being focused on, the belts mean nothing.
Now that you say that about Rollins tweeting that, like, I do remember that. I mean, I remember going, yeah, fuck, I know. You heard the people. I mean, like, fuck, I know it was great. Well, that's like when we came back to WWE in 2022 in the Barclays Center. I go, did you hear that fucking reaction? We're about to main event WrestleMania now. You can't, how can we not with that reaction? And then shit goes the way it goes. It's just,
Yeah, it seems to upset them sometimes when you get a good reaction, to be honest. But that's another.
They'll either silence it down, or I mean, we weren't even on the top 10 returns of 2022 when we had the best reaction in 2022.
The worst thing they've done to that clip is like the people trying holy shit, right?
Oh,
so on the YouTube clip, they've taken all the sound out because they said
bro,
holy shit.
It was in New York City. I mean, and they always say if you get over in New York, you're in New York. But that is what it is. But it just that kind of proves our point that sometimes you got a ceiling there, and then that can be. It's just the way it is.
We had hoped that the matches. This is getting off subject, but we were hoping the matches with Gable and Rude would lead to a WrestleMania match, and it didn't. Thankfully, we did get on WrestleMania with Hawkins and Ryder and had a really good match there. But the four of us had worked so hard to hopefully get on Mania with that match. And then it's nothing, and so you get all these pat on the backs, and eventually it's like, okay, well, there's no feeling from that. The feeling is what you get when you're out there from the fans, so that was the ultimate for me, was the gratification they were giving us for working so hard. Coming to the back and hearing Jamie Noble tell me how great it was, I didn't care about that. I cared about what they felt because I knew it didn't matter how well we did. We were only going to be given so much because Vince didn't like 2 5'10" North Carolinians, with a Southern accent.
So I knew that this match was going to turn into a fart in the wind. I knew that. I don't look at it as that. I look at it as a beautiful match that bonded me and us and those boys together more than, bonds I have with other people. But I knew it wasn't going to lead to much more. I mean, you can hope and you can manifest all you want, but you got to sometimes be a realist. And what reality happened, it didn't, right? And I'm sure there might have been some internal things I'm sure there was some internal talk of it being good, but at that point, once you figure that place out, you start to figure it out. And it's sometimes you got not a whole lot you can do.
I I'm kind of intrigued by the idea of house shows not really being a thing anymore, right? That's, I said this to you earlier, but what you described, all those matches, it feels like something from yesteryear now, and this isn't that long ago. As a wrestler, is there like a romanticism? Is there a magic to the house show to you? Because as a fan, I think there certainly is. The idea that on any given night, you can buy a ticket and see something special. Is that something that's real to you as a wrestler? Or is it just like, that was the schedule, that's what you did?
I think then it was the schedule, and that's what I did. Right. Looking back on it, maybe a different feeling, but when you're on the road, man, like Cash and I were. And I know it sounds like I'm just blowing smoke up our own asses, but there was a time, dude, when we were working Raw and SmackDown. So we were doing. I remember there was a loop where we had been gone for 17 straight days, and because we had worked Raws and SmackDown TVs, done overseas tours, we had done NXT too, and we just had never been home. So it was, at the time, it was just a schedule, because you got home for a day and a half, and I got to lay in the couch and just hold my daughter because I couldn't do anything else.
Right. So I'm intrigued, because this is like the last year, right? Because before COVID, this is the last year where the schedule is crazy. Like, it will never be like this again, I presume.
Never. I mean, unless they, it might be like that again if they decide to get on that. I can't imagine it.
Right.
I can't imagine it. But I mean, there was times when you would go from China to London. I mean, from Shanghai, China to London, and then fly from London back to Ontario, California for a Raw, and then go to Houston for SmackDown. It was wild.
I remember that they did that like September World Tour thing where it was like Shanghai, London. I saw you guys on one of those.
Yeah,
London
and people don't believe this either. It's true. Vince said he did not know if China would draw, or if they were going to have anybody in the China arena, or in the Shanghai arena, but he knew that the O2 arena would sell out. So if you want to do Shanghai, you got to do O2. So we did the O2 arena in London, right? And we flew directly to Shanghai, and I feel like that was like, a flight that you can't really compare. And the best part about that is Braun Strowman was in coach. That's what people don't know. You got to pay your Big E, the whole New Day, Braun Strowman, Luke Gallows. We're all sitting in coach, just chilling. If people think you're in first class all the time, you're not.
See, now this feels like my fault because I was one of those guys at the London show. It felt like it was on me now,
Yeah, sold out, and it was sold out too. I mean, I still remember that one. It was, but that is the schedule that it was, and I can still see Braun sitting in 74C, and he's the biggest man on the entire plane.
I came back and I remember, because I had met Wyndham Rotunda, and I always loved his dad. His dad was always helpful to me. But I remember saying to Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda, and Roman Reigns, I was like, you guys, I commend you for taking care of this locker room. Because one of the reasons I didn't want to come back to WWE was because the locker room had always sucked previously. And it was some of the old guard, and they didn't like the young guys, and there were all these rules. They were shitty to each other. And this was a group of guys who were buddies. It was like being on a football team that was making a comeback. Everybody liked each other. Guys would go to the gym together. Guys would go eat together. Guys would go out drinking after the show together.
Oh, live events really were where the magic happened and where like all the fun was had. So, and this could be a tangent. I won't go too long into it, but like TV wrestling isn't fun. Like it's not enjoyable. You have to worry about positioning for ring cameras and hard cam and floor cams and crowds. And you got to worry about commercial breaks and when you're coming back, how to have an exciting commercial break, what to do during, what to do when you're back, and then having to make sure you have time on the back end for everything. Like, it's really like wrestling is the last thing you're thinking about. Like, you got to think about everything else that goes into this. So, like, I don't love TV wrestling, and I tell that to everybody. Like, it's fun, it's cool, but I just prefer to wrestle. Like, I want to go out, like I'll go out in front of 50 people and just think about just the wrestling, just the match, just like what I can do for the people watching right here. And that's always been more enjoyable for me. So live events were always where you got to do that. You get to go out and have a lot of fun and joke around.
House shows there's going to come a time where house shows are going to be sorely missed, because those are what allowed people to find themselves. Because you hear about all this stuff where you got to get a character, you have to get a character. But when you start searching too hard for a character, it's never going to come across genuine to the audience. You just happen to find this character, and you happen to find who you are as a worker. And so the house shows are what made all the details work for you as a wrestler, but also gave you things to like, gave you things to show on television, to make part of your gimmick, whether it's a signature move, or whether it's a taunt or something,
The match where Xavier tore his Achilles in Australia, like he and I were having like a race to see who could run the ropes the fastest, and like that clip's on YouTube also. But beforehand, like we probably spend 4 minutes with hugging, me and Dax, and then them getting like a cheer for hugging each other, and we just start doing more outrageous versions of it. Like we're standing on the middle rope hugging, and then Big E does a split and they hug, like, and the fans are just enjoying it the whole time. So live events were always, and we had a great live event crew too. Like at that point, they weren't using as many people on live events because a lot of the guys and girls had signed new deals. So they weren't having to be used every week to get their money up. They were getting paid no matter what. So they just left more people at home, and live events became more of a bare bones crew that last year or so. But it was, everybody got along great. Everybody worked hard. Everybody supported each other. Like it was so much fun. Like that was what kept us going that last year, is just the locker room, the camaraderie, and the fun of the live events. Again, even being exhausted from all the international tours, once you get out there and the crowd's having fun, like you just, it really does feed you. Like it gets your adrenaline going, it gets your energy up, it gets you, like there's times where I'm like, oh man, it's 10 o'clock, I'm in bed by this point. I'm yawning and half asleep, and then you get out there and I'm running laps like Wile E. Coyote. Like it just kind of gives you that energy to keep going. Funny enough, one of our last live events, we had done an international tour. They made us come home and do a TV right after. And then for whatever reason, they'd never done this before, but they added one live event after TV the next day. And so we did the whole international tour, come home for a Raw, I believe. And then the next, maybe it was a SmackDown. And then like the Saturday live event, and that was in Washington, D.C., whatever that live event was. And everybody's exhausted. Everybody's like, why is there one random live event after all that? But we worked a New Day in the opener, and we just had a blast, and the crowd's enjoying it. They're going crazy for those guys. They're hating us. And one of the producers, when we got to the back, he's losing his mind. He's like, if Vince saw that, he would blow a gasket. He would kill. And I said, he's not here, is he? So he's like, well, he also said, like, if Vince saw that, he would lose his mind. He'd hate it. He'd fire you on the spot. I said, I'm trying to get fired. Like,
we were on the road. I mean, it's just the truth. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, every week for 4 years. And then there was 2 overseas tours that went 14 straight days, twice a year. You were on the road at least 14 or 15 straight days, then back to Raw. And so you're around each other and you're working with each other every day. Then you're going to Australia, and we were going to Shanghai, China, like that. And we went to Santiago, Chile. I mean, you're just around each other, and you're starting to get to know these guys. And they felt like, I mean, just like full-blown family.
You know, let's meet up at the airport, because you got to remember too, they were sending us all over the world. Vince would want to pick up extra money, so we'd go. We did this one, and these guys will remember. I think all 4 of us were on it, but it was like London, Shanghai, China, maybe India, then something, then like back to Detroit for TV. And it was like we went around the entire world and then came back and shot TV, and everybody's just like, you know, barely hanging on, but we were together all the time, and there was camaraderie in that too. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Well, here we go, you know. So that was probably the closest locker room that I was ever a part of, you know, in any of the companies.
Especially with FTR, like when you're married to people like that and wrestling them so much, and working with them so much, you do get tight. And like you said, the creative woes always are always going to be a part of the business anyway.
Right.
Just the schedule, man. I felt it when we went back this last time. People aren't as tight, and it's because they don't see each other. They only see each other on Monday, and they only see each other on Friday at work. And it's a little awkward. Like with people that I knew for a long time, I was like, what's up? And like, there was up. And it's all right. Well, how you been, bud? All right. See you. I'm going to go bye. And like, we're just fucking getting away from each other because we don't know what to say to each other because we don't see each other anymore,
House shows provided camaraderie for the guys and the girls. And that's probably the biggest thing I feel that's missing in AEW is we had a few house shows and I was on a lot of them, but not very many people wanted to sign up for it. But, the thing that's missing from AEW and even WWE too, but is the house shows. And that, driving or landing in a town, wrestling a match for 20, 25 minutes, driving 3 hours to the next town with some of your friends and doing it all over again for 4 days in a row. That's where the camaraderie came. And that's when you realize, like, it's not just about me. It's not just about me. I think that's a difference in guys like myself and Cash. And there's a few other guys like that too. And some of the newer guys where I think some of the newer guys, and I'm not blaming them or saying it's a bad thing, but I think some of the newer guys only think of, okay, what can I do for myself? And whether their first match, last match, 2 minutes, in between, they're thinking about what can I do for myself instead of what can I do for everybody.
Because they always said you wrestle for one man. I said on TV, yeah, probably so. But like on live events, I don't wrestle for one man. I wrestle for the people that are here that paid money to come out to the show and have fun. So those fans are out there sitting. Those fans are out there watching. They're the ones that are here and paying. I don't wrestle for the guy that owns it. I wrestle for the people that pay. And if they had fun and if they listened to it, like if you listened to it and you could hear how much fun they had, then I have nothing to tell you. Like, I don't live in fear of one man. You can. I'm going to go out there and have fun.
Yeah, and TV days, I'd imagine, are very different too, right?
Different, and there's just no schedule anymore, and that's a good thing for families, right? And everything. I'd like to see down the road how, like we were saying, with calling it in the ring and learning how to work, and I just wonder if that'll have ramifications with matches and people, learning how to wrestle and call things when things do go awry, because things will go awry at times. And, what will someone do? Will they get nervous? Will they fuck up? It's the house shows are where you can learn a lot of stuff. And that was where we learned a lot.
I think the camaraderie is what's going to be missing a lot when house shows completely are gone and it only becomes a television product.
I do kind of wonder that, from the outside looking, it felt like that was a really tight crew. And I do kind of wonder, Cole wasn't convinced by my theory, but I do wonder if part of it being so tight was everyone kind of, like everyone was being messed with creatively, right? The creative sucks.
It is. It was like, you just kind of like, you're going through it together. So you have like it's your therapy group. It's your trauma club. Like, you're going through this shit. And like I say, trauma, like, we still live a great life. We still get paid well. We still get to travel the world. So it's not like we're just getting abused and like getting misused and all this other stuff. But like, it's still not what you love the way you love to do it. So like, you're having to eat a lot of shit to have the fun.
We had this joke, and I don't know if any of these boys have told you this or not. And this was a Gallows thing that I came up with because everybody thought it sucked. Like, we would fight FTR, the Revival, and we do one of our 6 to 8 minute TV matches, and either they would beat us or we would beat them, and that would all be forgotten in hour 3, because in hour 3, for like months, Brock Lesnar would come out and decimate people. So they would have the Good Brothers and FTR, who just had this vicious fight and hit finishers on each other, and we're all going, "Don't put Brock Lesnar, don't fight." And I go, all they preach around here is psychology. What is the psychology of the guys that are fighting for the top tag team spot, not wanting the guy in the singles spot to fight anybody on this simulated fighting show? So I named us the positive reinforcers. We don't like any fighting going on this fucking fight show. Whatever you do, go out there and make sure Brock Lesnar doesn't beat anybody up. Us? We just fought. Yes, you, go.
So you got to have people that can go through that with you and make you laugh and have a good time and like get through it all, because otherwise you're just going to be running yourself into the ground and you're going to be miserable and just keep focusing on the negative. But like, again, everybody was positive. Everybody was a good crew. Like, we were exhausted, but like we would use that to kind of cheer each other up or like improve the morale, especially after shows late at night at 2 a.m. eating cold food and having a couple of drinks. Like,
Now at 40 years old though, and I've been doing this. This will be my 21st year in wrestling. I don't miss the house shows, but you know, for almost 10 straight years, I did that. I lived that life where we were on the road for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you know, and if not more, and you know, and Mondays too. So I lived that life, but I do believe that the younger generation is missing out and is going to miss out on a lot of stuff because there are no house shows.
Less than a year removed from the Tokyo tape, FTR and the Good Brothers would be gone from WWE. Unmoved by offers of an extension, Dax and Cash would finally get their release in April 2020. Just 5 days later, Gallows and Anderson would also be released, bringing a sudden end to the 5-year deals they'd signed the prior summer. Able to return to work a little sooner than the COVID cuts that followed them, FTR landed in AEW just a month later, ultimately settling into a form that defined their place in history, collecting classics and championship belts along the way. Most famously, their departure would lead them to an iconic trilogy with the Briscoes, producing 3 of the decade's finest matches thus far. Ironically, the Briscoes had another match the night of that first meeting, driving across Texas for a reunion with Gallows and Gunn. It's pretty cool. I mean, you mentioned the first FTR Briscoes match. Pretty cool that on that same night, Mark and Jay just drove across Texas and wrestled the Good Brothers, right?
that's crazy. That, yeah, the Good Brothers texted us like later that night, and they're like, "Man, the Briscoes are so good. I don't think ours is quite as good as the one you guys had," or something along those lines.
Unsurprisingly, the Good Brothers have had a wild 5 years since that release, signing with Impact and even representing the brand in AEW. Hell, the lads would even produce their very own pay-per-views, making headlines with 2 Talking Shopper Mania events from the Big LG's backyard. Perhaps craziest of all, or maybe not, they'd ultimately return to WWE, with Anderson producing a strange piece of history by entering the Tokyo Dome as a WWE superstar, carrying never open weight gold to boot. Fittingly, FTR were on the same show, dropping the IWGP Tag Team titles after spending much of 2022 as Tag Team Wrestling's Universal Belt Collectors. Now in 2025, FTR are back on the dark side, embracing the villainy that led them to fame. In a similar vein, the Good Brothers have returned to New Japan Pro Wrestling, leaving their latest WWE departure in noticeably good spirits, motivated to make towns as only Good Brothers can. Naturally, a rematch is now available, and that's certainly of interest to the grapplers themselves. Any interest, anything to say in regards to a potential reunion of sorts? FTR, Good Brothers, maybe some town down the road elsewhere. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, I would love to. I mean, I don't think we ever properly got to do anything worthwhile outside of this Tokyo match. You know, like I said, they're guys who I think sometimes might be given a bad rep because of things they've been given creatively. And at some point when you're given shit over and over and over again, all you can do is laugh about it. You know, if you only take it seriously the whole time, the bosses, especially at that place, especially at that time, they're going to see that and they're going to fuck with you more. So, you know, I think that the Good Brothers get a bad rap because sometimes they did just kind of laugh it off. But if you stay miserable, if you live in misery, the bosses are going to see that and they're going to fuck with you even more because that's what they get off on, or that's what they did get off on.
You know, maybe these two teams, FTR, the Good Brothers, can meet again someday. Dax certainly seemed interested. Anything at all you want to say about a potential rematch down the line?
Dying for it. Dying for it. I always say this. There's like, you got the 1980s tag teams like the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, Demolition, the Rockers, guys that we loved. Then you got the Hardys and Edge and Christian and, you know, the Dudley Boys and all that. But you can't have the Young Bucks. You can't not say the Young Bucks, FTR. And I mean, this is where, I think FTR and the Good Brothers need another opportunity.
Any chance do you think of an FTR Good Brothers rematch down the line?
I think there's a 100% chance of an FTR Good Brothers rematch down the line. I think it'll probably mean more to us now than it did then. And I hope that very soon after this comes out, if it hasn't been announced, that it will be announced. And we'll figure out a way to make it happen somewhere. That is my hope. But I would say, barring some catastrophe, at some point there will be a rematch.
We talk about it all the time. Like, we got to figure out a way to get back to Japan and have that match again. I'd wrestle those guys anywhere. Like, we told them, we'll come to Lariato. I don't care. Like, we'll come to Georgia and work for Gallows. But at some point, I do want to run it back with those guys in Japan, just because I feel like we could have so much fun. And even if it doesn't reach the heights of the Lost Classic, like, I just think that we could make a lot of fun and magic there. Like, I enjoy working with those guys. They're really good. They're really funny, and they're professionals, and they can do it without being like too high strung, which helps a lot. Like, you can have people that can relax in there with you and breathe and talk and laugh and loosen up. So, and I just think that at some point it will happen again. I think we all want it to happen again. And I think that Japan is very much in play for that one.
I would love to run it back with those guys. And I think they're both in the best shape they've ever been. I don't know if physically, I'm in the best physical shape. I think I maybe look the best that I've ever looked, but I think physical shape, I've peaked already. But I do think, knowing that, I have a better mind for the psychology and how I would want to lay a match out with those guys. And and plus I'd love to, if we did have another match and it was a worldwide viewed match, then people could say, maybe it was the worst match in wrestling history. Maybe they could say that, and if they could, Vince would be validated.
We have a group chat with the FTR boys and Gallows. And we were trying to book the FTR at our Lariato show in Dublin, Georgia. Now, I think that going old school with those boys there, that's really where it should happen.
Time will tell, but the Tokyo tape lives on regardless. Perhaps not in footage, or not yet anyway, but in the memories of those that were in attendance. From the ring to the stands. That's a moment they shared. A snapshot of a crazy time that will likely remain a thing of the past. Either way, there's a small part of me that's satisfied with the reality that most likely this will remain a match that I hear a lot about, but never actually see. After all, that's the magic of a house show. A romantic return to the idea that with a ticket, you can see something special. Something that stays there, a memory locked in that building. Granted, I did say small part, because rest assured, I'll be the first in line for the WWE Vault upload when it drops in 2049. I have been Joe Hulbert, they have been the Good Brothers, and they have been FTR. This has been the Tokyo tape. Do you have any Good Brother stories surrounding the ring? It doesn't have to necessarily be the Tokyo match, which we'll get into more in a minute. Is there anything that comes to mind of just an anecdote? If not, that's perfectly fine.
Oh, dude, there's always something funny that happens with those guys in the ring. But I wasn't even there for this one, but there was a match where they were working with Heath and Rhino. And Karl gave Rhino a clothesline, I believe. Or he gave him something, and it knocked the breath out of Rhino, but it was supposed to go right up to the Magic Killer. Like they're like, and TV, like you have like a time to hit. And so they have like 30 seconds to get everything done, get to the finish, and get, the beauty shots. And they hit Rhino with the clothesline, and it knocks the breath out of him. And he starts trying to roll out of the ring to take a breather. And they're like chasing after him like a comedy, like a cartoon. And he's just rolling away. He's like, I need a second. And they're yelling, we don't have a second. And they finally and if you ever find it, I don't know where it's at, but it's somewhere. It's a main event match, I believe, or Superstars if it was still around at that point. One of those. But it was televised at some point. It aired, and you can see it. And you can see him trying to roll away, and them trying to gather him and collect him and get to the finish and hit the time cue.
Do you have any memory of? Do you remember who you wrestled when you teamed with Triple H? I have the names here if you need the.
So do you have the in front of you?
Yes.
So don't tell me. I know Drew McIntyre was in there. I feel like Baron Corbin was in there.
Yes, sir.
And then would it go Sheamus and Claudio, or am I thinking differently now?
Machine Gun, I believe, went 2 for 4 guessing, remembering who these 4 were. Can you pull this off, LG? What do you think?
Samoa Joe, Bobby Lashley. Oh boy, I remember those 2 specifically because I remember being in the ring with both of them doing big guy shit. Kevin Owens wasn't one of them, was he?
He was not. Would you like me to bail you out on this one?
Bail me out.
Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre.
Really?
Yeah.
I really think I would have remembered that better. Drew's a great buddy of ours, and I feel like we didn't wrestle Corbin a lot before then, but I lost it. The 4 big heels. There you go.
What's interesting is I want to say this. I could be wrong on this. Cole may have got the 2 opposite names to you, so this may be a case of just the guys you interacted with in the match, and the rest of it just gone.
And another one with Rhino. It might have been the same match, honestly, but I think that they were supposed to be like a spot where there was a trip and it was missed, and so Gallows from the floor gives him like a Superman punch to the calf. And he sells it like he got hit with a bow and arrow. Like he grabs his calf and he goes down like he tore his Achilles. And it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen, just because it was so not what they were wanting to do. And that you could tell that Gallows is just going to be like, all right, this will work. And then Terry feels it and thinks that he got his leg chopped off.
It is so them that I just
there's always something funny that happens with those guys. Like, it never fails.
Yeah, I'll say, look at Joe Hulbert's DMs. You hook it up, man.
You got it right the first time, by the way. I know you always doubt the pronunciation of my name. I get it's a weird name. It's Hulbert.
Hulbert.
Yeah.
Hulbert.
Hole is its own thing. People it happens every time. When I was in Chicago for like an AEW show,
the
guy, one of my friends were there, which made it worse. Guy walks up to me and goes, "Joel Hublow, nice to meet you." And everyone around me pops. I'm still like,
"Oh, Joel Hublow, that's gonna be the best one."
Yes, that's not what you're gonna know me as. I know for a fact.
Oh, my good friend Joe Hublow,
Now they call me Hubcap, and it's just out of hand. I will try my best to ensure the trailer isn't like, I think the most salacious thing I checked with Gum was that he says like, maybe we shouldn't have taken the offer, and it's sort of this somber moment in the
That might be the clickbait right there.
And then the other overlap is when you guys do Wrestle Kingdom, right? And that's a really weird kind of snapshot there, because you guys are there at the end of your kind of belt collector run, which, IWGP title was Bishamon, and Karl Anderson's there as a WWE superstar of all things.
Yeah.
A really weird full circle. Is there any memories of that reunion? I know you guys got a picture from that show, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, so the Wrestle Kingdom one, that's the one where I almost missed it, because I had to have some sort of form from our doctor, and he thought I needed it later in the next day. And I did need it by like 6 a.m. the next morning, not later in the day. So it didn't come through the night before, and I'm starting to get nervous, and I get to the airport and it still hasn't came in. I'm like, I should be good. Like, it should be there by the time I get to Atlanta and go from Atlanta to Japan. they wouldn't let me board in Orlando, even though I wasn't going international yet. They just told me, like, you can't even fly to Atlanta until you have it. And I'm like, oh no, like there's no other flights that are going to get me there in time. So I was stressing just getting there. The fact that I had to drive, they moved my flight to like an 8 p.m. flight that night. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Your screen cut out.
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't know if you could hear or not. The screen cut out, but like I missed the morning flight because of it. Got the form. They put me on like an 8 p.m. flight. The 8 p.m. flight keeps getting delayed, and like 10 p.m. they cancel it completely. So I have to drive overnight to Atlanta, like 11 o'clock, get in at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and have an 8 a.m. flight. So then fly the 8 a.m. Bailey was on that flight with me. We ended up having the same flight and having pods side by side. But that one was one of the ones, like, by the time I got to Japan, I was like, okay, I'm okay now. We got to the show, and it was just, we got to see Mercedes for the first time in a long time. Got to see Karl for the first time, and it was weird, him being a WWE guy and being at New Japan. But getting to walk out, because I was late, like I said, and I didn't get to see the arena until pretty much I walked out for the match.
Wow.
So getting to see the Tokyo Dome for the first time, like, and take it all in.
Amazing.
So,
that match is killer too. It's very, very underrated match, I feel.
And it's one of those ones too where, and I don't like going too much into it, but it's not going to be the grand back and forth 25, 30-minute barn burning classic. They tell you what they need, and you go out there and you have the best match you can have for that spot of the card. Like, we're not the main event. We're not something where they're trying to feature it. They have a long ass show here, and they have a lot of stuff they need to get done for the stars later on. We just got to make these guys look as good as possible, and then crown them the next champions, and that's our job. So I was very happy with that one, honestly, like, just because we didn't have any history working with those guys too much, a little bit here and there, and then I get to the building with no rest again, like an hour before the match, and try to get it all figured out. And the first time I get to see the Tokyo Dome is walking out with people in it, and I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome.
Tremendous. Okay, last couple here. I apologize for keeping you so long. It's been wonderful. Wonderful.
You're good.
Time.
You're good.
Okay, so one of the things that I've kind of stumbled into as a theme of this, talking to both Dax and Karl, that I think is a nice, kind of probably a more fun theme than just like, damn, it was a bad time in WWE, which is true, but there's other more interesting things to talk about, right?
I remember I walked in Madison Square Garden and somebody handed me a magazine. I looked at the magazine and it was the top 5 tag teams in the whole world. And I go, who the fuck is the North? And I walked over to FTR and I go, who's the North? I'm in here at Madison Square Garden. Just because people don't like me, you choose a team called the North? Who the fuck is the North? And like I told Ethan Page and Josh Alexander this story, and I was just kidding. See, that kind of stuff is what gets me the heat. But I remember thinking, like, well, you can like Gallows is a big guy, okay. Machine Gun doesn't do this, but you can't put the North ahead of the. We're about to go out of Madison Square Garden against the Usos, match 1, and you tell me the North is one of the top 5 tag teams in the world? Get out of here.
They're having a hell of a run, man. I don't know.
But my point was I didn't know who they were. And then I went and had great matches with them. And I love Josh and I love Ethan, and they're awesome. And they were awesome to work with. It just blew me away. We never get the credit that I feel like that is what it is.
I'll let you go. I've taken up enough of your time. I apologize. But
no, you're fun to talk to. I wish I didn't have a schedule today. We could just wrap all day and do another interview. But fuck.
Thanks again. And I do have to say, and I'm sure, it probably wasn't a huge deal to you. A few months back, you reached out just out of the blue to check in. So it meant a lot, seriously. So I have to thank you for that, mate, seriously.
No, I know life isn't easy. I know there's a lot of shit that everybody's going through. And that's what this should be. Like, we should all be here and kind of lifting each other up a little bit. And you've been so supportive of us throughout the years, and you've always spoke so highly of us. Like, I want to make sure that you're good. I want to make you've become a guy that I consider a friend, even though we've never actually hung out and really got to know each other. I respect what you've been doing, and I think that you're a good person. So yeah,